Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar and the latest installment of the Local Search Expert Series, How to Use AI to Grow Your Business. My name is Justin Meredith, and I'll be your moderator for the day. And I am a Senior Digital Marketing Specialist at Birdeye. And we have a really special discussion lined up for you today because we are going to be cutting through all the noise and all the talk around AI and all the talk about what it can do. And we're going to talk about actually how to use it, now how to use it to grow your business. But before we jump into that discussion, let's take a look at your webinar dashboard just to make sure everybody is caught up on everything. So in the middle of your dashboard, you should see a window displaying the slides from today's discussion. We have a lot of slides that we're going to be getting to with a lot of screenshots. So I recommend dragging the bottom corner of the slide and making it bigger. You can resize all of this, the windows that you're seeing at any point. So you should see that right there in the middle. On the right side, you'll see a window for some helpful resources, as well as a call out to our upcoming event, Birdeye View, which I recommend everybody register for. It's free. It's going to be 2 days with over 20 sessions with over 50 plus speakers, 3 of which are actually here right now on this presentation. And it's going to be a really awesome event. So I highly recommend checking that out. Underneath the slides, you should see a section for the comments and one section for the Q&A. In the comments, please feel free to say hello, add your own input, or maybe some of your own prompt ideas that we're going to be going through, or maybe your own experiences using some of the AI tools that we're going to cover today. In the Q&A section, feel free to ask any questions that you may have. We're going to try to answer as many as we can. We want this to be a free-flowing workshop style of conversation. So if you have a question pertaining to what we're talking about in the moment, let us know. We'll try to get to it. And if we aren't able to get to your questions, we are going to try and come out with a sort of blog that kind of recaps this discussion as well as answer all of the questions that we received. So be on the lookout for that as well. As a reminder, you can resize the images. I definitely recommend increasing the size of the slides. We'll have a lot of stuff to cover. Also, as a note, there's a good chance that we will go a little long today. We've put together an awesome discussion, and as we were putting it together, we started to realize like, oh, wow, we might not be able to fit this all in an hour. So we may go a few minutes long, but don't worry. If you can't stay for the whole time, you will receive a link to the registry or to the recording of the webinar sometime tomorrow. So if you can't stay for the whole time, don't worry, you will get a link. And then lastly, on the left side of your screen, you should see me. You should see a video of myself, as well as our special guest speakers, who I will introduce right now. So please, everybody, join me in welcoming Ben Fisher and Steve Wiideman. Ben is the co-founder of Steady Demand, a company specializing in local SEO. He's also a Google My Business Diamond product expert and a writer for notable platforms like the Local Marketing Institute, and he contributes to the influential annual local rankings factor study. Steve is the CEO and senior search strategist of Wiideman Consulting. He specializes in SEO strategy and has over a decade of experience in consulting for various enterprises and world-renowned global brands. And in addition to that, Steve also contributes in academia. So he's an adjunct professor at UCSD and CSUF. And we are absolutely thrilled to have you guys join us today. Thank you both for coming on.
Thanks for having us, Justin. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited. We have a lot to get to, so I want to make sure that we can get to everything, because we are really today we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of what you're supposed to do. We're going to be getting into the nuts and bolts of what we're supposed to do with these AI tools that have emerged kind of in this new era of generative AI and large language model. But one thing that is important to know that these tools are not all created equal. Some are better than others, and some can do certain tasks better than others as well. So I think the best place to start is by identifying some of those major players in the AI space and talk about what each of them are best suited for. So let's go ahead and do that right now. And so right now we've got ChatGPT, Google Bard, Bing AI, Claude, and Midjourney. Ben, do you want to take a run through some of these?
Yeah. I mean, this is probably one of the most common questions that I get is what tool should I use and when should I actually use it? The thing is if we look at like kind of it's weird to say history of this because it all started kind of in November of last year, is that, ChatGPT came out first, right? They were also bankrolled a lot by Microsoft. ChatGPT amazed everybody. So usually when I'm like building my prompts, I start actually with ChatGPT. I'll use the plugins. So I have the version 4 basically. And then I'll use, like, I think it's, I forget which one it's called anyway. It'll browse the web basically. But I'll use that kind of first. But after that, I kind of move off of ChatGPT because ChatGPT does not have a great memory, which means it can hallucinate fairly quickly. Usually after 25,000 words, it gets confused. So then I'll move over into Claude. Claude has a 100,000 word memory, which is pretty amazing, by the way. I mean, you can actually literally have Claude write an entire book for you, or digest a book and then talk about that book. So it's pretty amazing. So I use it to refine my prompts and my prompt ladders. Eventually, I'll usually end up actually using Google Bard. Bard has very limited web capabilities, but it is good enough. And it's really good at things like code and also just understanding. Where Bard falls flat is understanding complex, complete prompts. So you kind of have to spoon feed the prompt in one piece by piece versus in one block. I prefer a block, but when you're building a ladder, you can go rung by rung. So that's how I use it. Now, Bing AI did have first mover advantage where they integrated it into search, but Bing leaves a lot to be desired. It really doesn't understand prompts very well. You can only use simple prompts, but even that, even when you put up some guardrails, it'll come back with information that it just doesn't make sense, or it just wants to explain things more to you than give you the actual answers. So I think Bing is not going to have a very good future unless they make changes to that. And we're not even going to talk about generative search today. And then finally, you've got image tools like Midjourney. And then there's DALL-E, and there's Leonardo, and then SDXL. Midjourney is the best. You can prompt it really well, and you can tell it the styles and everything like that. I really suggest Midjourney over all of them at this point. It continues to get better. Anyway, that's the basics of the tools. Steve, do you have anything you want to add to that, bud?
One of my favorite things to do is try all of them, right? All the ones that when I'm looking for a contextual answer, for example, I'll ask Bard, I'll ask ChatGPT, and now I'll start asking Claude as well, just because I really want to see the differences. I don't really do as much with Bing, only because my gut still tells me, hey, this is ChatGPT, even though Bing is kind of putting its own little spin on it. In the same way, I suppose that Yahoo puts a spin on their results, which are also sourced from other search engines. So for me, I like to, on my phone, I have two apps, two on my desktop. I got to add Claude to it too. But I have the Genie app, and then I have Bard. And Genie, of course, is ChatGPT. And so when I'm doing anything, asking a question about something, learning about something, trying to figure something out, trying to find an answer to anything, I'll use both, or now all three, just to really understand the differences and see which one is the most helpful, and to see if there's again anything that I can determine that will help me get to the solution that I'm looking for. So I would, at least for the time being, I would try all of them, even if it feels redundant, because you'd be surprised. Sometimes you get some really weird results out of one and you get exactly what you were looking for out of the other, and then the next day it'll be completely opposite. So but for me, I would say like you, Ben, I use Bard far more than the other tools when it comes to doing more task-based work. I've been using Bard quite a bit more. Now I do use the ChatGPT plugins, like you were saying. There's one in particular, I can never remember the initials for it, but it's AIPRM, and I use that premium version to basically give me a whole library of different prompts and really well engineered prompts that I could use to help me do things like writing meta descriptions and coming up with Google business post ideas and drawing inspiration from all sorts of stuff. By the way, you did mention something about writing a book. I believe Amazon just pulled a ton of books that were written by AI off their shelves. So do be careful if you're listening and you're getting excited about being an author using AI, because it's probably not going to work in your favor. Anyway, so that's my bit on the current tools.
Awesome. Interesting. So we before we jump into the next section, we did receive a quick question, and they're asking, are we discussing paid versions or free? And if you're going to recommend one paid tool, which would it be?
Well, Bard is free.
Yeah. So, well, it is. Yeah. The one that I use is called Go Magi, Magai, and it's gomagi.com. And the reason I use this is A, it was built by a friend of mine. But B, what he's done is he has integrated ChatGPT 3.5 and 4.0 and Claude, and is continuing to add other AI models to it. So it's actually cheaper than ChatGPT 4, by the way. And also it does stuff that Midjourney does, right? So you can create images too. But anyway, the reason I use it is because of that, is because it'll basically act like ChatGPT 4. When ChatGPT 4 runs out of its tokens, 25,000, it will go down to ChatGPT 3.5 until those tokens get refreshed. And you can always switch over to Claude. So it's just a nice way to kind of have it all centralized. Of course, you're missing out on Bard, you're missing out on Bing for the moment. But yeah, that's what I use.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely, depending on your usage, you could probably use the free versions of ChatGPT and be just fine. If you're not using it often, if you're using it often, you're a digital marketer and you're in there every day just doing things, you definitely want the paid version. Now, when we get to some of the keyword research topics, there are some tools that do require the API and would require you having a subscription to ChatGPT. So keep that in mind, right? Again, it's how much do you plan on using it, and do you plan on using any of the paid tools that require an API?
Awesome. Now let's get into how to actually use some of these tools. And I think the good place to start is by asking you guys, what rules do you guys follow when it comes to writing a prompt? Because I know that if anyone here has used an AI tool before, you know that it's a little bit more complicated than just thinking something and putting it, typing it out. There's a little bit of a nuance and kind of a format you need to follow.
Yeah, I don't like to reinvent.
By the way, for the people that are asking about the URL, I'll get that for you in a minute after we get through these slides. So prompts. Prompts are the most important aspect when it comes to using these large language machines, basically large language models, LLMs. Yeah. Anyway, one thing you have to understand is that this is not AI in the thought of like Terminator AI, which is aware type of AI, right? This is AI branding put onto computers doing computer stuff. And so I like to lead with that, right? Because if you understand that concept, the rest gets really super easy to understand. So things that you can do, right? I mean, and I'm not going to read these off to you one by one, but well, actually, I think I am actually really quickly. If you don't know what you're doing and you're trying to do something, just explain it in your English, in your language, how you want to say it, what you're thinking. And then if it doesn't produce what you're looking for, ask it to give you a prompt for this. And it might actually be able to understand kind of what you're thinking about and give you a better prompt. Mm-hmm. Be fluid with your words. Be very descriptive. And we're going to get into kind of prompt structures. But like your guardrails and what you want it to do are the two most important aspects of your prompts. And Justin and I were laughing about this the other day, is that don't ask, tell AI models what you want. Trust me, they don't care. There is no please, there is no thank you, there is no emotion behind the scenes. Actually, by the way, when you do introduce things like please and thank you, those eat up your I forget what the tokens, sorry. Because each letter is a token, or multiple tokens actually, and then each word is a token, spaces are tokens, and the large language model is trying to understand understand those tokens in consideration with everything else you've put. So if you put pleases and thank you in there, it can actually taint your prompt results. Negative prompting is also important too. It's just, it's just like with SEO, right? There's some negative keywords. Same thing here. Your negative prompt is going to be very important too. And so, so anyway, and then like if you want to continue things, you can tell basically ChatGPT or Claude or any of them to actually just continue or write more. Okay, next. Again, we talked about that. Always remember, give it a role. You want to always give it a role. And then define things basically, and do this, do that. And then you want to do answer with, and we're about to actually show you an example of what that looks like.
Awesome. So clearly you have to have a very solid idea of what you're doing when you're prompting some of these large language models, and you have to be very careful with the wording that you use. So when it's time to actually write a prompt, how do you, I guess, quote unquote, set the scene, or how do you ensure that it's following your line of thinking, so to speak?
I like to cheat a little bit, honestly. For me, I remember learning HTML, and the way I learned it was reverse engineering an HTML page, back in the 90s. And so for me, I use a lot of the prompts that have already been created, like the extension or the plugin I'd mentioned a minute ago, the AI PRM. Right, I'll go into there. I'll look at some of the prompts that are in there to draw inspiration first, and then, like Ben said, sometimes I'll sort of give it clues to get me to the place of having the prompt that I really need. And then the other thing I'll make sure I do is I store it somewhere, like in a Google Sheet, just so I have a backup of it and don't have to remember, what did I ask it last time? Right? I like to keep my my desktop clean as much as I like to keep my chat clean. So I try to keep things in a separate document.
Yep. And so this slide here is just a good visual representation of building an AI prompt. This is one that I built very early on when I was experimenting. And what it is meant to do is very simple. It's meant to interview you about, or somebody about a topic. And then it's going to go ahead and give you a summary. It's going to tell you what you're doing wrong and what it would suggest based on what you said or what you're missing. It's going to give you that summary. And then after that, and it's going to do it in a step-by-step fashion, by the way. It's literally like an interview. And then after that, you can actually do whatever you want. You can say, write me a blog post, write me a sales email about this, write me a Twitter thread. You can do anything you want with what it's created. And that's what it's used for. It's used to prompt all of that content. So the format, as you can see, is I want you to act as. So you're taking the initial role, which these AI systems have, which is basically an assistant. So it's baked into the code to be an assistant first. This overrides the assistant and tells it you want it to be a legal professor, a writer, an editor, a local SEO expert, a link builder. It was fun when I did this actually with a friend of mine who has a link building company. He's like, oh my God, it asks the right questions. It's like, yeah, it sure does. You can tell it your role if you want to. I make it optional, but it's like, I'm going to be the client. Fine. Okay. So it kind of gives a little bit more context. And then there's I'm telling you what to do, right? I only want you to reply as an SEO expert. You're going to help me create a strategy. Finally, we have in the middle, we've got guardrails. Guardrails are super important when you're writing a prompt. And I'm going to linger here very quickly. So when you read this, you can see I'm basically telling it explicitly, this is what I want you to do. This is what I don't want you to do. So I like to suggest that when you're building a prompt, think that through really well. It's like, what do you want? What don't you want? It's going to reduce the number of hallucinations that you get, basically false information that it makes up. And it's going to give you your result, basically. And then finally, you're going to tell you, what do I want at the end? Okay, I want you to write a summary. I want you to write a blog post, etc. The last piece, my first sentence is hello, is just, it's kind of it's a prompt in itself, basically. It just get things started and get things rolling. What about you, Steve?
I just thought of a really interesting idea, and it's something I haven't really tested yet. But I use Amazon Mechanical Turk quite a bit to get feedback on, which title and which description would be the most clickable or interesting, which page is better in terms of, user experience. It might be an interesting concept as you're coming up with prompts to, to ask and start your title of your hit in Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is a crowdsourcing site for tasks. You might ask prompt experts, prompt needed to solve a problem. And then in the description, you describe what it is you're actually looking for. And then for, 10, 20 cents or whatever an answer, you get out there and get, 20 to 50 Amazon Mechanical Turk workers to help you find that solution. Now, this isn't a case where there's a monetary value out of it, right? I wouldn't just use it for day-to-day queries, but it would be really interesting to test if you want to ask and crowdsource ideas, because if nothing else, it'll give you inspiration. And thinking about how I've asked communities and Slack groups, I said, hey, I'm really trying to find a prompt for X, who can help me? By the time I get all the answers, I've used those answers as kind of inspiration and kind of figured out the answer myself. But it is a new world. It's a new way of thinking. It's a new, and I love your approach, Ben, of hey, why don't we have it ask me a series of questions? And I think to myself, why didn't they just bake that in to begin with? And then I realized if they did, then every single time we'd put a response in or a question, it would come back with another question, and there'd have to be some sort of a limit to it, or they would just keep asking us and drilling down the rabbit hole. And it's like, yeah, that's too detailed. I don't need to answer that one. It could get ridiculous. So I understand why it doesn't do it by default. But yeah, so the other thing I was mentioning earlier is I don't like to reinvent the wheel if I don't have to. I'll reverse engineer scripts and prompts that are already out there. One of my favorites is this ChatGPT Summarize Everything extension for Chrome. So whenever I'm on a page with an article or a blog post or something I'm really fascinated to read, Search Engine Land, Search Engine Journal, right? All those great websites that we use to to suck in new information about what's happening in our industry. I'll use that plugin. Now I went into the back end of the plugin in the settings, and I was able to modify it so it's not just summarizing. Now I actually ask it to give me 5 actual action items. And I've tried 10, and sometimes it's interesting too, but I think 5, give me the top 5 action items from this blog post, from this article, from this video. And yeah, you can do video because obviously there's audio transcripts and so forth. So I think that's a huge time-saving thing and a great way to to think about efficiency as you're getting into your prompt engineering. But it's interesting too. The other thing I've been hearing from people who I work with is in an email I'll hear something like, "Yeah, I'm taking a course on prompt engineering." Those exist. So as you're learning and you're drawing inspiration from these webinars and podcasts and so forth, consider taking a course on it. If nothing else, it'll help build a foundation to make prompt engineering a little bit more streamlined for you.
Well, and to that point, just really quickly, sorry, Justin, to that point, realistically, this is a skill that anybody who is in any kind of marketing needs to have. Yeah. There's a saying that I like to echo, and that is that very simple, is that you will not be replaced by AI. You will be replaced by somebody who knows how to leverage AI. And so
can't argue with that.
That's the warning, basically, is like, and you're right. People are getting very good at prompts. I mean, I see some Midjourney prompts that are amazing. And, but I mean, just look at what those jobs pay right now. It's amazing. So, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So let's dig into and that's a great segue, because let's dig into some actual use cases. And I think with you guys being SEO experts, and I think everybody here could agree that improving your online presence and your ranking and things like that is always something that I think any business should strive for. So let's start with that. How can you use these AI tools to assist with your SEO efforts?
I'm not allowed to say expert anymore. I ranked #1 for it for some 12 years, and the stigma it created and being an expert in something where there's no written documentation got me in trouble. But we'll definitely say SEO enthusiast or SEO scientist. Adjunct professor counts too, since that's an actual job. But yeah, so I've got some great ideas. But first, I was kind of formulating this really silly dad joke that I just have to share. And Ben, tell me what you think. What do private blog network, PBN, owners and AI models have in common? they both believe that hallucinations will solve everyone's problems. Anyway. So the first thing that we started doing when we jumped into this whole new world of AI here at Wiideman was how is this going to affect our clients' visibility and appearance in search results in a year from now, and what do we need to start doing to plan for it? The second thing we're thinking is, how can we reduce the amount of time we spend on really tedious tasks involved in SEO, such as audits and keyword research? How can we use this technology to cut our costs down and to speed up the time it takes to actually create a content roadmap for a client or to perform a technical audit? And it's super fascinating. It's all really new. I wouldn't trust everything 100% as you get into it, but get in the mindset of this is the way that we need to start thinking about how we're formulating an SEO plan as time goes on. In a year from now, this should be sort of paramount to the start of any kind of campaign. But right now, you're going to get a lot of weird things and frustrated. And so if something frustrates you and you're not getting where you want, and don't keep wasting time on it. Visit it again in a month or two and see how it's improved. The next iteration of the language model as it's supposed to be, improving over time. So just kind of get in the mindset of this is where we're going, not necessarily this is the end all solution. So in conducting an audit, the first thing I do is identify competitors. That's a really easy one. You can just go out and ask and say, if this is my industry, who are my top competitors? And get really specific and detailed about what you do and what you offer when you ask about the competition. The second thing is performing that whole competitive analysis. One of my favorite things to do, and we'll get into a little bit more, is extracting titles and headings and image names and image alt tags and words used in URLs to draw inferences of the entities I need to be thinking about as I'm putting my own content together. Google's already displaying results based on what it thinks users are looking for. So why wouldn't we use the results that already appear to pull those entities, those topics, those keywords out and try to fold them into our own copy and creating our own original content? I mentioned that extension quite a few times. I'm in love with it. I think it's just a really neat way to expedite some of the things you're looking for. You won't always get the results you want, but it's a lot of fun. I was able to pull some Google business posts, 15 of them, from this neat little thing the other day that from one of its specific prompts in just a matter of minutes. It was really neat. I'd already mentioned extracting the metadata like titles and descriptions and so forth. You can do that with AI and save yourself some time and not have to use some of those really expensive audit tools. Coding issues, you can drop some code in and say, this JavaScript's taking way too long to load. Can you optimize it, or can you help consolidate 2 or 3 JavaScripts, and try to make it a little bit more smaller in size, and of course, fixing anything that's syntax-wise is not working. And then testing security, speed, and accessibility, which we'll get into on the next slide. So here's that example the other day where I was playing around with some of the new, on the screenshot here, some of the new prompts. One of them was audit a page of content. It wasn't really there where I wanted it to be and didn't go through all the attributes that I would have wanted it to, but it did provide some really interesting things to think about as you're going through and doing your audit. Like, oh yeah, the EEAT thing that Google made a big deal about. I completely forgot about that as I'm rolling through this tech audit. Are there some opportunities there? So if nothing else, it's really good inspiration and helping identify areas of focus as you get into putting your recommendations together. As you would, as any consultant would, you're going to have observations. You're going to make inferences from those observations, and then you're going to create action items. The great thing about AI is it can help you, put those action items together from the inferences that you get. So it's a really fun way to streamline a lot of that auditing. If you want to go to the next slide, here's an example where I just said basically, hey, my business offers cybersecurity. It doesn't. I just use something random. What business should I consider to be my direct competitors? And it got pretty close. It was neat to see, and again, this is where if you're kind of new to an industry and you're really good at what you do, but you don't really know who else or who the big players are in your industry that you should be emulating or keeping an eye on. So this is a great way to start that competitive analysis. If you go to the next one, You can see that we asked specifically what kind of criteria should we be using to test your website. And I love this because, yeah, there are SEO consultants and there are checklists and free things you can download online, and there's platforms and tools that you can use. But how neat for a small business that doesn't have the budget to do any of that, to just ask, right, Bard or ChatGPT and just say, what are some technical criteria you should test your website for? And it actually nailed it. It actually did a really good job. It wasn't inclusive of everything, but it definitely hit some of the most important. Can my website be crawled, and can my pages be indexed? Does my content load super fast? Am I mobile friendly? Since I know most of my users are on mobile, are there duplicate content issues that are causing issues with search engines trying to figure out which page to index, or am I borrowing content from another website that I shouldn't be? Internal linking, structured data security, all these things are high priority items that you want to consider, because if your page can't be crawled and indexed, you're not going to get any traffic. The other one I did here is, does this URL pass Google's core web vitals criteria? I just threw in our location pages SEO study that we did, and it was pretty on point. I was shocked, honestly. I didn't think it'd be able to actually pull it, and I thought it would just kind of come up with its own. But for that page at the time, it was pretty close to where I needed it to be. So as you're going through and prompt engineering and creating scripts that will go through these prompts and using the API to generate your own output, you can take all of these and basically run a script and do it all and run your audit very, very quickly. This is just showing you the manual way of how you can do it. But as you get into APIs and you get into working with developers to generate audits, the AI that's coming available is going to be where we can capture that without, again, spending thousands of dollars on expensive SEO software. If you go to the next one, security, super important. And I thought this was really interesting because it didn't just say, yeah, it's secure. It went through and it said, I checked the website's SSL using Qualys SSL Labs website, and it received an A+ rating. And then it went through all the different criteria and everything that were important to it. And you can see at the end, overall, it's secure and your data is safe. Fantastic. Again, that plays into your audit. So I thought it was really cool that it went the extra mile instead of just using a hallucination. Next one. Mobile friendly, same thing. I asked, hey, is my website mobile friendly? I tested it. It looks great, even though it's old and hasn't been updated in like 6 years. I can't wait to launch a new website. And according to Google's mobile friendly tests, the website www.wiideman.com is mobile friendly. So it's again just another criteria that we know is important, to our technical analysis of a website as we get into our SEO campaign. Next one. So accessibility, and I know John Mueller's made it clear that Google doesn't crawl a website and say if there's accessibility issues, we're not going to rank you. But he also made it clear that it's sort of a correlation causation thing. If a percentage of your users have a poor experience because of disabilities and accessibility challenges, they're going to go back to the search results, choose a competing listing, and over time, Google is going to infer that you weren't very helpful. As we think about those core SEO principles, right? Our page relevancy to the query, the visibility of our content through links and mentions off the website, and how people are searching for us with those search terms. And thirdly, how users are interacting with our listing within the search results. Are we where they end up staying in the end, or do they end up going to competing listings? So this one's important from that aspect of it. And I thought it was great that it was actually able to tell me I had accessibility issues. And it was right. I really do. Go to the next one. So keyword research. So this is really, really, really nerdy stuff. But one of our clients that we'd worked with was Applebee's. And Applebee's had 185,000 keywords that I had extracted from Search Console and from 20 of their top competitors. And from those 185,000 keywords, I was able to organize them into different tabs based on, the food type, or the special or deal, or off-premises takeout deliveries, all those different ways that people were searching for and finding them and their competition. It took me, because I have other responsibilities at the business, nearly 6 months to put together a full taxonomy site architecture plan based on those 185,000 keywords. Had this technology been around in 2016 for me to be able to streamline it, I probably could have gotten all of that work done in less than a few days. So very exciting that we can use AI now to do what most SEO agencies just won't take the time to do, and that is take every single search term that people are using to find us for, and build a site structure that addresses each intent in each way that somebody's looking for us and our competition. Really, really important part of SEO, and most agencies and SEOs just don't take the time to do it. They just do SEO in the same way social media marketers do Facebook. They don't really have a strategy. They just kind of jump in and do stuff. So this first one is exploring GPT for Sheets. GPT for Sheets is a Google Workspace extension. I mentioned earlier, some of these things come at a cost, and the API does need to be used for this one. What's great about it is once you do install it on Google Workspace and you go into your Google Sheets, you enable GPT for Sheets, and now you can do equals GPT and all sorts of really cool things, taking into account all the cells. You can do some neat things with math. You can draw inferences, get topics. Here's an example here. You can see the A through D list of what I would put into your sheet. And there's a little walkthrough video here on how you actually do it. It's a really neat exercise. The person who introduced me to it, and I don't think it was the one who created it, was Steve Toth. Steve Toth has this incredible newsletter called SEO Notebook, and definitely follow him. His stuff is amazing. So he shared the first version of this that I started, playing with, and again, not reinventing the wheel. Someone's already created something at a base. Now I can go and make it my own and do some really creative things. And what this basically did is it took all the entities from the top ranking websites, and then it combined them. It removed all the duplicates, and then it separated them with a comma. And then lastly, I just put them all as lowercase so that I can make it really easy. Either one, for me to create for ad groups and paid search, or two, for me to add to my site architecture planning of how we want to organize our site, or a specific page and the words we should be using in that page. Really neat way, again, to not have to guess what Google wants me to put on my page for it to rank, but instead to basically take all the entities that appear in the first 10 results and help that create my outline. And then improving that site architecture, here's a neat way that you can start thinking about it. So I just gave an example. You can kind of come up with your own, and just, again, it's more mindset, right? What's our mindset and how we want to start using this, different than manually going through and trying to understand the intent of the users performing a search query. So in this one, it's provide a list of 20 keywords I should optimize. By my SEO, sorry, it's a typo there, my SEO services website for, and then a list of content represented by pseudo URLs. Now, this is great because you're not just saying, hey, client, hey, boss, these are the keywords we need to put on our website. You're actually giving them the URLs. You're building that content treasure map that enables them to visualize what the site is going to look like after all this content is created and how it's organized. Please tell me you're not shrapneling your best SEO content on your blog randomly, but that you're organizing it into evergreen content in pages and silos on your site, the way that we have as information architectures for some 25 years now. Don't just throw your best stuff out on the blog just because it'll rank quickly, because you'll find it will go away eventually, because blog feeds are RSS. So think about evergreen, think about site architecture, think about silos, and making sure that the most important keyword is at the head of that silo. Next, so here's some examples of kind of how we're thinking in terms of just very basic site architecture. And this one, I said, please organize the following keywords. I dropped those keywords in there from some keyword research, and I think you'll see that in the little video. And it output these pages that I'd create. You take those, you put them into URLs, and you say, hey, content writer, I need these pages on my website if I want to rank for, and this one, carriage, underride, truck lawyer, right? Very long tail keyword. But if you get one case out of it as an attorney, it could be millions of dollars of revenue for you. So here are the pages that you would create: underwrite crashes, car under truck accidents, underwrite truck accident lawyer, protection, and definition. And of course, you want to make sure your page is absolutely the best based on what already appears in the results. If you go to the next one, this one is a great way to come up with tags for your images. And this can help with how you name the image. It can help with your caption and your alt tags, which helps accessibility and also helps you leverage some search terms. And what I thought was really interesting is I used the Google Image Recognition API, which all of you as local SEOs are probably already doing. to make sure that your listing shows up in the Google Map pack with the image of the type of food or product that the potential customer is looking for. So if you're not already using the Google image recognition before you're uploading your images to Google Business, definitely jump in there and do that. But I thought it was really interesting how Bard came up with some very similar, very overlapping themes from the image recognition to the tags and words that I would use to describe an image. So I thought that was really fascinating. Definitely still use both, but this is a neat way to, again, just make sure that you're using the right keywords, that Google, when it identifies the images on the page, might show your page over a competitor simply because your original unique image was identifiable as the product or service or menu item that the customer was looking for. If you go to the next one, here's those 20 keywords I should optimize my SEO services website for. Again, some typo there. And then it gave me those ideas. And then it also gave me, and I didn't even ask for them, it also gave me some long tail keywords. All of these play into, how you put URLs together. But the goal here, again, is, to use it as a keyword source, as a starting point. If you're on a very low budget and somebody says, hey, I need you to do some SEO, I've only got $2,000 to work with, can you get me started? You could use some of these tools or teach them to use some of these tools to help get a jump start on, getting some basic content together. And then as it starts to generate revenue for the business, they can re-up and do something a little bit more in depth. If you go to the next one. And then here's where I said, provide that content represented by a pseudo URL. So taking those same keywords into consideration, it dropped them in here, and I wasn't really happy with how it presented it. So I said, hey, can you put these into a single list of URLs? And wham, bam, there you go. There is your site architecture for a new website, addressing all of the different keywords through unique pages that you would build on your website. And within minutes, you've now built a site architecture based on keyword taxonomy, and didn't spend 6 months and trying to take 185,000 keywords to do this manually. So that's kind of the use case of how you can start exploring, playing with, and making the keyword research prompts your own as you get going in your SEO strategy. If you go to the next slide, I think that's, so here's an example for keyword strategy where I used one of those prompts. And this is in that AI PRM extension. So here, basically I said in their version of it, and it's not amazing yet, but it's still really, really helpful, and it shows you kind of where we're going. I put in SEO services as my keyword, and it came up with a cluster of keywords: SEO basics, benefits, techniques, pricing, cost, tools, all the different things we need to address on our website, the keyword we're going after, what their search intent is. It even gave me a title and a meta description, but be careful with that, because I don't think that long-term Google is going to be a big fan of sort of robot generated content. But I do often use prompts such as, write me a compelling 600 pixel title, as close to 600 pixels as possible, so it's not too short, that's for a particular keyword. And then I'll say, make sure that the title includes a call to action, the keyword, whatever the keyword is, and a unique selling proposition. And in doing that, now I've helped increase my click-through rates. I'm not just shoving keywords in there, and I've got some really good ideas of where I can start. And you don't have to just get one. You could say, give me 3 ideas of title tags that are close to 600 pixels in length, that include a call to action, the keyword, and a unique selling proposition. So the technology is getting better, and the extensions are a great place to start. If you go to the next one. Cool. So the other thing I would do too is, so I took a piece of content from our site and I said, hey, please correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation errors in this document. So now I didn't have to spend $20 for an editor. Instead, I just dropped my content right in. And I'm sure Claude could do a better job because of how much content it can take in versus ChatGPT. So I use Claude just for fun. I uploaded a text document and boom, it gave me all my revisions without me having to pay an editor to do it. So it saved me a ton of time. Next one.
Cool.
And
so
Ben.
yeah,
Cool.
So with this, one of the most, oh, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say
Justin.
oh yeah, one of the most popular ways that we see people using AI, and it's the way I use it the most too, is for content creation. But if you've ever tried it out for yourself, then you know it's not quite as easy as it seems. There is a lot more nuance, kind of what we were talking about earlier with the prompt ladder. So what are some tips, Ben, do you have for content creation when it comes to using these AI tools?
I want to lead this with a warning, because Mark brought up a really good question. And his question very specifically was basically around how much editing and how much human interaction really kind of needs to be put into content, right? And what I want to say is this, is that everything that Steve went over was amazing, right? And really very useful. But when you're doing it, you really need to take a very close look at the results. And the reason why I'm going over this first is because it's going to apply to everything else that we're going to talk about here.
100%.
So, AI is like, again, kind of like what Steve was saying, is like, we're just at the beginning of these large language models right now. And so there's a lot of problems. There are a lot of issues. There's a lot of hallucinations. We've kind of gone over that. And so there's also a lot of fact checking that needs to be done. For instance, if you go in and to any of these tools today and you say, tell me what EEAT is all about in depth and provide your sources, it will give you sources that don't even talk about it. Yeah. It'll give you URLs to search engine journal that don't exist.
Yeah.
It'll tell you Neil Patel is writing about the topic. Seriously, he's not. So the point that I'm making is that editing, fact checking has to be in your DNA when you're doing this. If you fire and forget, you will be embarrassed. More than likely, you'll hurt your SEO efforts.
Guaranteed.
Example, very quickly, I have seen people who have used AI to write review responses, and they do a fire and forget. Not saying not using Birdeye, right? But actually just going in and just saying, they tap into somebody who's got some crazy tool that'll just automatically write it and automatically reply. Well, guess what? I've got screenshots of companies that we're talking law firms who have the first review response is, excuse me, I am an AI model. I cannot answer a question like this.
Yeah.
And that's what all the review responses lead off with. It's like, okay, well, I'm glad you told us that you're using AI for that. So again, the takeaway there is whatever you're doing, please, please, please edit, read, do not fire and forget. Now, all of that being said, let's talk about content creation. So why I put this in for writing emails is like, for me, for instance, I'm like notorious for writing super short emails, right? Straight to the point. Whereas they should probably be a little bit more friendly, maybe a little bit more detailed. So you can actually use AI to pretty up your emails, add a little bit more context to it. I'd like, for instance, I use Grammarly. Grammarly will go ahead and you just highlight your text and it'll write up a little bit better response for you. But again, you have to read it, because if you don't, oh my God, you can send the wrong message off to somebody very quickly. Writing Twitter threads is kind of cool, right? Twitter threads, writing those is kind of a painstaking thing if you want to just do it. So what you can do is you can basically, like, I like to use Claude for this, but ChatGPT works too. And you literally just take the content of the article and say, summarize this article, like, just give me a 10 tweet, Twitter thread, and it'll do it. And you can even ask it to spit out mid-journey prompts for images too. And it'll do that as well. So it's really kind of cool to be able to do this. But however, again, you still need to fact check it. I had a friend of mine the other day, he went ahead and was using something based off of somebody's article, and it was how to write a Google post. And it's got 5 main tips on that. And what he did was he just literally put the URL in and he said, okay, write me a Google post based on this topic. It did. It didn't follow any of the rules, though. It included hashtags and all sorts of other stuff. So that's what you get for not reading it first, I guess is my point. So think again, like an assistant. Okay, next slide.
We want that automation to be there. It's just not there yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a question that we got about search volume. And the answer is 100% yes, you can get search volume. And it's actually pretty accurate, mainly from Bard. You want to use Bard for this. You can't really, you can try and use ChatGPT for it. You can also use Anthropic Claude for it as well. But I found the most accurate results going to come from Bing. I mean, Bing, Bard. And you basically, like, for instance, for this one, it's very simple what I said. Write me a list of services for an HVAC company would offer, rank them by keyword search volume and intent, and lay these out in the table. And so it does it. And then what you can do is you can actually go to the bottom. Now you can export this to a Google Sheet, and there you go. You have now done your keyword research with your keyword volume. So I'm just showing you like little examples of how you can use content creation in a way that is useful as an assistant, kind of like what Steve was telling you. And so like another example that I have here is with service areas. So when you're working with a Google business profile, the rule is that you cannot have a service area which is more than 2 hours driving distance from your verification location. Well, the problem with that is that when you're working with a client, you're not going to know all the nuanced of their exact areas, right? You don't know how long it's going to take to drive across Austin, Texas. I mean, I don't know that, right? So, so what you can do though is you can basically put in these areas, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to calculate the data for you. In this one, I actually showed this to a friend of mine who lives in Austin. He's like, "Yep." You're like, "That's actually correct. That's totally right. As long as there's no construction." It says that, by the way, construction.
It's always construction.
So,
Yeah, there is.
Right, exactly.
I can't confirm.
Next slide. All right. And lastly, we have Midjourney. So there's a couple different tools that you can use for image creation. Me personally, I love Midjourney. You can use XDXL, which is a newer one and is really good. Actually, it can do a little bit with text. It's going to get better. You can use DALL-E. You can use, which was one of the first ones. You can use Leonardo, which I don't like Leonardo. It's just some dudes were great. Midjourney just happens to have the ability to put in a lot of prompts. And again, your prompts are the most important thing here. As you can see by some of these examples that Justin made, you can create things that are pretty photorealistic, pretty stock friendly. And but you have to be able to explain and put in more detail than you normally would with a prompt ladder for text. And that is because you do have a lot of control. For instance, I mean, you could say, at the peaks of the mountain, I want to make those pink. And it will actually try and do this. You can feed it an image and work off of that image as well. So, but like we're saying here, it's describe what you want instead of what you don't want. So you're not going to do a lot of negative prompting, basically, is really what it comes down to. So,
yeah. I think a big question too is how does this affect digital marketing? Before we started today, I told you one of my dreams is that Midjourney gets to a place where small businesses that can't afford to use graphic designers and Design Pickle and these other websites can harness this technology to build infographics and diagrams and things that would normally cost them $500 to thousands of dollars, and they could leverage this to create unique original content on their page, because stock images, the zeros and ones of the binary of those images, are already cataloged in all of the search engine databases, because Shutterstock and Getty all get crawled, and Google already recognizes that is a stock image. It's not unique or original to this page, so this page is not unique and original because it's using stock imagery. So if we can create images, obviously the best thing you could do is just bust out your camera and take some pictures and some video and add it to those pages. But business owners, for some reason, are camera shy in a lot of cases. So this kind of technology could enable them to create some of that content quickly. So be thinking about that as it gets better, because right now it's still not where I'd like it to be.
I had a friend on Facebook, Pierre, came to me and he's like, hey man, it's like, you look like you know what you're doing with Midjourney. He's like, I want to create a fake persona And then I want this fake person to show up in places like Paris and Egypt and become basically an influencer, right? And he's like, "Can you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually you can." So I went into Midjourney, and this is just leveraging off of what you're talking about, right? Because normally this would cost thousands of dollars for an agency to create. And so the first thing I had to do was just create a man, right? Just a generic, this is a businessman
with 5
he's
fingers.
suave, he's cool, whatever. Well, actually, he had his arms crossed, or like his fingers were hidden, so it was like actually a perfect image. Or actually, no, one hand was done right, the other one was hidden. Anyway, so you can re-roll. It's called re-rolling to get these things. So after that, then what I did is I downloaded it and I re-uploaded it into Midjourney and got a distinct URL for it, because that's what you need to do to leverage off of previous images. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, so take this man link, and I said, and show him on the street in Paris eating food, right? And he did it. Wow. And it repositioned him, actually. Right? And I was like, all right, cool. I was like, okay. All right. I was like, make this guy, in Egypt at the pyramids screaming like, yeah, I'm here.
That's so fun.
And it did it.
So it's getting better. That technology is getting better. I know my daughter, I know what we have to move on in a second, but my daughter, we were in line at Space Mountain at Disneyland, and she says, wouldn't it be amazing if this whole Space Mountain was filled with nuns? I'm like, kind of. And I was like, oh, that's a Midjourney thing. So I opened up Discord and ran the Midjourney, and I'm like, here you go. And it actually nailed it. It actually had nuns writing Space Mountain, which was pretty funny.
Anyway, nice.
Cool stuff.
Mark and William have a question here really quick that I want to answer, because it's the same thing. And so basically it's, in a sense, is asking, is Midjourney original content? Is there any copyright issues, right? And can they be copyrighted? Jury is out on this right now, because Midjourney is trained on an unimaginable number of images, but these images are from everything from Picasso to Greg the artist. So so there's a lot of question as to whether they are copyrightable at the moment. And the answer so far is no, they are not copyrightable right now. As a matter of fact, I believe even Amazon will even state that these are non-copyrighted images. So, you can print them out, you can put them on a canvas. As you can see, I've got Thor Cat hanging on my wall. That was my first Midjourney image. And, but I don't own that image. Technically, I don't own the image. So and it's a gray area, I guess, is my point.
It's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Should we keep moving?
Yeah. And I think this next one is, so the next area of, whenever you want to help grow your business is your online reputation. And, we've talked a lot about it with SEO and, making sure that your overall Google presence is strong. But there's also an entire aspect of managing your online reputation, especially if you're a company that has a lot of different locations. And so when you're doing that, you have to manage your reviews, you have to manage getting reviews, responding to them, understanding what they're saying and using them in an actionable way, being able to break them down by location, also running your social media and making, and one of the big things that, we've talked about, and it's something that we're going to talk about again in our session at Birdeye View, is making sure your information on your Google business profile and really any listing online where your business has information located needs to be very, very accurate and formatted in the right way. As well as with messaging and web chat, there's a lot of different aspects of your online reputation that require a lot of manual work and a lot of different really tedious kind of tasks. But that's one of the good things that Birdeye has done a great job of. Most recently, we're actually right now in the process of coming out with Birdeye, which is basically an entirely revamped platform of Birdeye, powered by natural language processing and large language models. For example, on the review side, we had talked about those AI generated review responses and how, you were saying, Ben, there's, that law firm, they would have I'm a language model, I can't answer this, or whatever it was at the beginning of the review. Well, with Birdeye, it's all integrated in with your customer management system, and it's integrated with what you're using. So it won't do that. And the great thing about it is you can, similar to what you were saying earlier, is the reroll. So you can have it generate a response based on what that person has said to you, in their review. You can also write your own review and then have the AI spruce it up. But there's always the option, and I would encourage everybody to always read the response that the AI has generated, edit it, make sure that it's exactly the way you want it, and then press send. I wouldn't recommend just leaving it blind to just respond on its own, because you never know how some of these things are going to react. But on the social media side, we've now got a product where it can do those social media posts and create those posts from scratch, as well as do the editing as well. And also, similar to Midjourney, it can create images to go along with those social posts. And I'm not sure how many people here run social media for their business. I did it a few years ago for a company I was working for. And one of the hardest things that I faced was just constantly trying to think of different captions every single day. Because one thing, if you're in social media, consistency and quantity of posting is very, very important. You want to try your best to post as much as you can, at least every day. And sometimes it can get really hard to talk about the same thing over and over and over again in different ways. So having something that can, create these social posts for you, or at least give you ideas, can save you a ton of time. On the listing side, you'll be able to create, AI generated SEO friendly business descriptions that can really help you trigger with those keywords that Steve was talking about. Same thing with messaging and web chat. So like if somebody is on your website, they can talk to, a much more human-like AI chatbot that can help respond to them more personally and provide better answers, and also redirect people to the correct real person if needed. It's a really, really cool tool. It's really, sometimes it can be difficult to know if you're talking to a person or the web chat bot that we provide. It's getting really advanced, and it's only going to get better, as time goes on and these models get more advanced. One of the really cool things that we're coming out with is the conversation summary, and it basically takes all the interactions that you've had with the customer and summarizes it into much more digestible chunks, similar to your reviews. So let's say you have 200 different locations of your business, and one of your locations has like 350 reviews. You'll be able to go from a per location basis and it will provide you a synopsis of what those reviews across all 350 of those reviews are saying about your business. So you can identify at the blink of an eye exactly what people like and don't like about your business on a location level. It's a really, really cool tool. In addition,
doing it manually is exhausting. We've had to do that, and then putting it all into a spreadsheet, and then asking GPT for sheets to do it. It takes forever. So that's cool that you guys do it automatically like that. It's awesome.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's really cool about Birdeye. And it was, it kind of reminded me what you were saying, Ben, about your friend who developed that tool where it kind of combines multiple tools. It's similar to this, or Birdeye. This is what we've been built around. This is what we've been focusing on for years. But it kind of enables you to not have to go out to a lot of these different tools to get some of these results. So you don't have to go to ChatGPT and copy and paste the review, have it make a response, and then copy and paste the response and make sure it looks good. It's all integrated in with your Google profile, so you can handle that right then and there. It's honestly getting much more advanced as we go. Oh yeah, just the yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize the bouncing from window to window. That time adds up a lot really quickly. And kind of similar on that, providing that analysis of reviews, it also can provide analysis of your competitors' reviews. So now you know exactly what people are saying about your competitors, what they don't like about them, or what they do like. And when you're armed with that information, that can be really, really valuable in making your own adjustments. So if you know that the guy down the street is really bad about their wait times, you can ensure that knowing that, you can make sure that you prioritize the fastest service possible, and that's going to make a difference.
I could see a title tag update where you actually include wait times under 5 minutes in your title tag. So people already, when they see that, your click-through rate goes through the roof, because that's the one thing that irks them about going to your competition. That's really cool.
Exactly. It's honestly some really, really cool stuff. Here's a couple of screenshots of the social aspect on the left where you can have it create you a caption and then say, oh yeah, we'll also create an image to go along with that. And then here on the right, you have that automated business description for your Google business profile because it is tied into your business. It knows what your business does. You can all, provide it, with extra context and things like that. And this is really just the start. This is some stuff that we're rolling out right now. And we're going to talk about it a lot in our virtual event in September in Birdeye View, which I definitely recommend everybody to sign up for. It's going to be a really, really nice discussion. We're going to have a lot of different sessions. Ben and Steve, you and I, us three, we're going to have a conversation about just how to stand out on Google, especially in 2023 in this age of AI, where we're going to talk about, what can you do to actually separate yourself and how do these, AI search engines actually will impact your ranking if they do at all. We're going to be talking about all of that stuff in the event. So, and it's free. It's a 2-day virtual event with over 50 expert speakers and 20 sessions for free. And you're going to get the recording. So even if you can't make it for 2 days, you should sign up because you're going to get the recording of everything that you need.
And this session is going to be cheaper than ChatGPT's API. That's cool.
Exactly. So we are running a little over time, like I had promised at the beginning of the webinar, but we've got a couple of things to get to. And the last thing is let's just go over some final takeaways. I'm not sure if we've got any new questions just yet, but if you have them, just let us know. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the final takeaways. And the first one is, we talked about this at the very beginning, which is to remember that you're talking to a computer. And it's just a character prediction tool. It wants to just predict what the next word is supposed to be in its response. I fall victim to saying please and thank you to ChatGPT. I think it's more so I'm worried about the Terminator overthrow. I want that in my record, like, oh yeah, he was nice to the machines, let's let him live. But
you only have to worry about that from being Sydney. remember Sydney when they first rolled it out? Sydney wanted to kill people.
Exactly. And then the next main takeaway, that I felt like was really important is, focus on that format that you're prompting in. Being able to set the scene, tell the tool what you want it to be, what you want it to do, the guardrails to follow, and then what you want it to provide you. When you do that, it's insane the amount of the quality of result that you get from tools like Claude, Bard, ChatGPT is just awesome. Alrighty. But I
got two really quick cheesy local SEO jokes for those people who are local SEOs on the call. The first one, and these are just stupid things I come up with being a dad, was why don't local SEOs do sit-ups? Ben, do you know this one? Because they can never get better than a 3-pack. What do data suppression services and marriage have in common? When the relationship ends, someone loses an address. All right, you'll get that one. If you do a lot of multi-location stuff. But all right, those are my 2 jokes for today.
Awesome. Cool.
I think I'm going to go ask Claude to write me some local SEO jokes and see what it comes up with.
Add it to your local SEO book. I love it.
Awesome.
I'll tell it to act like Jerry Seinfeld.
Go ahead, Justin.
We've got some funny comments. We said, I want to keep the bots on my side in the robot uprising. That's where I was coming from. We've got a question. Oh, actually, I did want to let you guys know after the webinar is over, I'm going to have the slide deck downloaded and I'll provide it in the related content widget here. So once you'll get a link tomorrow, I believe, with a link to the recording. And then when you go back in that related content window, there will be a PDF of the slides just so you can go through them as well. Awesome. Oh, and there was a typo on the register now button. That's my fault. I was rushing through on that side of things. I was so focused on the slide deck. I didn't check my spelling on register now. So I appreciate the call out. I get that fixed. And we've got another question is, does Google penalize website for AI generated content? Does it know the difference between human and AI generated content?
Oh, I'm sure it does. I mean, as a teacher, I can look at some of the assignments that I get back from my students and know immediately, based on what I know as normal human created content and what's AI created content. And the 2 things that I've seen, one is don't use AI at scale, according to Google. And then 2, they say, AI content can be good and helpful and useful. I say, yeah, for inspiration, right? But I wouldn't ever just copy and paste verbatim because, again, they're going to know. And I think the creators of the world are really making a push to try to get some sort of watermarking or disclaimer that this page was created by AI, and that's probably not going to happen. But it's the mindset, and with that mindset, and with Google putting all this documentation, I would refrain from copying and pasting directly from your source. And even I saw a question, well, how much editing do I have to do? Well, don't do any editing. Don't even use the AI content verbatim. Take it as topic ideas and put your own branding and spin and perspective on it
I
in a
don't know if
unique
I,
document.
I don't know if I 100% agree with that. So
Yeah,
Google stance,
I'm playing it safe.
true, right? But Google stance on AI content is very transparent, right? They've come out and stated this a couple times this year. But most recently, what they said is no, AI content's cool as long as you follow one rule: it must be useful.
Yeah, and
Must
unique and
be
original. Yeah.
useful.
Mhm.
So if you don't do what Steve is saying, which is if you just copy it and paste it verbatim, now it's not useful, right? However, I do feel pretty strongly about this, and that is let's say you write an article which is 600 words, right?
Mhm.
But you really want to make it 1,200 words. Okay, prompt your persona, right? Train basically the AI on
To
your
write as you.
on how you write, and
Mhm.
then give it the 600 words, and say now either add at the end, in other words, continue on, or add to, which will intersperse content into it. Um, it's funny you have to do that, otherwise it doesn't understand what the heck you're doing. Right? So you sometimes have to feed it the last line and say continue from here. But anyway, add 600 words of content. If you do this in Anthropic, it's going to produce 60, by the way. Anthropic, for instance, for some reason can't do words very well. But anyway, but it will add actually valuable content. But then, to like what Mark was asking, you have to go back, you have to read it, you have to edit it,
Fact
because
check
if
it.
you don't, then there's a problem. So, but I found it
I would
useful
I
to
would
do that.
definitely encourage everyone to test if they feel like, hey, I'm under allocated in terms of resources and I need to figure out a way to scale. Just be careful. I haven't yet seen a page that ranks really well that was 100% AI generated content where it ranks really well consistently. Every time someone shows me and brags about how their content's ranking, a few weeks later, sometimes a few months later, that content's gone or demoted. I haven't seen one stick at the top yet, but I'm sure they're out there. But whether it's a long-term thing, again, this is the Steve the Jim Rohn quote I always like to use is the you don't have to do extraordinary things to be successful. You only have to do ordinary things extraordinarily well. So if you can generate content by drawing inspiration from AI, fantastic. But if you're just blatantly using AI, just know that if down the road you look at your site and you're like, wow, 60% of the content on my website was generated by a robot. And then suddenly that same hit happens that happened to the people who jumped into this content creation thing in February, and all the platforms and Jaspers and other things that were doing it as well. All the content that I've seen just eventually tanked. So
Yeah.
just be cautious when you do it and test. Don't test your most important lower funnel sales pages. Test those upper funnel pages that build brand awareness so that you don't suffer a loss. We had a client that decided to rewrite a very expensive Rolex page using AI, and they were ranked number 4 below Rolex.com. And they went to page 3 within a few weeks after deploying AI generated content, and they lost a lot of money and revenue from that page going down in rankings. So just be careful.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, the big takeaway there is kind of like the lawyer who said it on set and forget it with the review responses. Don't be a lazy marketer. It's an
Yeah.
assistant. It is not meant to replace.
Uh,
So keep that in mind. Otherwise, you can dance with that double-edged sword.
that's true.
Awesome. Well, I think it is time for us to wrap up here. Thank you, everyone, for staying on and staying tuned in to what we've been talking about today. Hopefully, we were able to provide you with some helpful insight and information on how to better use some of these AI tools. And if you'd like to learn more about Bird AI and some of the things that we've got going on here, feel free to email us at events@birdeye.com, or reach out to me on LinkedIn, or click the demo button, I believe, on your webinar dashboard. Will also kind of start you, with that education process. You can learn more about, what we're doing, and you can see it in action, which is really cool. And also, just again, definitely register for Birdeye View. It's been a big event that we're planning, and we've got a ton of great stuff coming. You don't want to miss it. So thank you all. And thank you, Ben and Steve. You guys are amazing. I can't even express how awesome it is to have you guys here with us today for this discussion. I wouldn't want to have this sort of thing broken out with anyone else. And so I just really appreciate it. And you guys giving your time for everyone here.
Thank you. Thank you, man. And by the way, I did ask Anthropic to write me some SEO jokes from as Jerry Seinfeld. I dropped them in chat. There's like 4 of them. They're actually pretty good.
That's awesome. What's the deal with SEO?
That is so Jerry Seinfeld.
Awesome.
Like, make sure your nap is consistent across directory. Naps? Yeah, sounds like I should be taking a nap.
Well, on that note, thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time in the next episode of the Local Search Expert Series. See ya.